Chapter 21. What it what is that? What are they? I was shocked at the sight. The hyenas walked around Eclise, who was standing still in the spot, and drooled as if they've starved for days. Both his arms and legs were cuffed. Large movements were restricted from it. A small wooden sword was all that was given to him. Adding to that, all he was wearing was a piece of clothing that covered his lower body, no protection at all. That's just too much. My heart dropped. It was as if their intention was for Eclise to be eaten by those starved beasts. What should I do? I started to think if I should shout out that I'd buy him before anything happens. Grr. Just then, the largest hyena jumped for Eclise. At the same time, Eclise lowered and rolled his body over to the wooden sword and stabbed it in that hyena's stabbed stabbed it in that hyena's one eye at a lightning speed. He finished off by giving the hyena a good kick. Yelp! The hyena cried and fell to the floor. It soon lost its consciousness, as it was now motionless. Grr! Growl! The remaining hyenas jumped for Eclise all at once after that. Gasp! I let out a short scream. He was able to fight them one by one, but I was sure it would be too much to handle a lot of them all at once. However, it turned out that all my worries were for naught. Eclis dodged hyena's sharp claws and teeth with his restricted movements and fought them off with just a wooden sword. Two more hyenas were down in seconds. Only two were remaining. One hyena aimed for Eclis's back when he was busy fighting the one in front of him. Eclis twisted the neck of the hyena he was fighting and quickly turned around to face the other one. Yelp! Then he stabbed the hyena in its stomach with that wooden sword that's not sharp at all. Flop! The last hyena dropped to the floor, bleeding, leading to the end of the fight. Ha! Ha! Blood dripped down the hands of Eclise, whose shoulders were heaving. Silence filled the space. Then, one by one, people started to give their applause. Thank you, the auctioneer announced. The end of the show. Ugh! Eclise went hyper after seeing blood and kept on swinging his sword, though the fight ended. He swung his sword dangerously at the people approaching him to restrain him, but he flinched as he fell unconscious before he was able to strike them. Then he was dragged off the stage. It seemed like they attached something to him, probably to prevent the slaves from acting out. Haha, he's quite an energetic one. It's hard to control him in a normal way. The auctioneer laughed and calmed the startled audience down. Now then, shall we go nice and easy and start the bid with 50,000 golds? 50,000. The auction for Eclise officially started. The starting budget for him was already on a different scale. I got nervous as I focused on the auction. 60,000, 90,000, 100,000. I see, 100,000. The price of Eclise increased rapidly at this rate. I expected the price to easily reach 10 million, 200,000. I see 400,000 over there. Thankfully, people willing to get Eclise started decreasing in numbers as time went by. There weren't too many people willing to buy a slave who came from a defeated country with over 500,000 golds, especially when he was too wild to be used as a knight partner. Note, please don't search that word up if you don't know what it means. Unless there are people insane enough that would do that. 500,000, 600,000. I see 600,000. You could afford a small house with that many golds. Now there were only two people still betting. I couldn't see their face because of their mask, but I could tell that one was an old woman with wrinkles all over her neck, while the other was a fat man. Their keenly half-closed eyes sparked in greed. I could tell the reason why they wanted Eclise from that. 900,000. The old women raised 300,000 more to the precious price, which made the price now 900,000 golds. 10 million. It's now 10 million. However, the fat man didn't back down. The auctioneer's jaw dropped as he moved his gaze to the old woman. The woman seemed like she gave up, though, because she threw the ticket to the floor in anger. 10 million. Is there anyone else? 5, 4. The countdown started. I cautiously looked around me. It was to check if there were anyone else who looked like they were going to challenge the fat man. 3, 2. I finally raised my picket in the air when I realized that there wasn't going to be anyone who would bet higher than that. 100 million. 100 million. Dead silence. If there existed a sound for people turning to look at me, then I'm sure it was going to be really noisy. 1. The auctioneer's jaw dropped again. He tripped on his words a couple of times as if He couldn't believe what he just heard, then soon shouted in joy. 100 million, she said. 100 million. Is there no one else? There was no way there'd be someone else. Even if there was, it wouldn't have mattered. That was because from the start I already decided that I'd shout out 10 times the number that the last better shouted. My life depended on this, even if it wasn't 100 million, but 10 billion. End of chapter 21. Chapter 22. My eyes met with his when I called his name. His eyes sparked dangerously. I could tell that he was going to try and kill me immediately after the pain disappears. I couldn't bring him to the mansion if he was going to keep acting like that. I bit on my lower lip, deep in thought, then took the mask off of my face with my free hand. Look at me, Eccles. I couldn't think of another way to calm Eccles down other than this. I could only hope for him to face the facts. Look at the face of your owner who bought you with 100 million golds. My face, which was covered with a mask all along, was revealed. His gray eyes widened instantly, probably because of Penelope's breathtakingly beautiful and alluring face, which didn't go well with a place like this. I didn't waver at all when I continued to stare straight at his eyes. It's not that I had money to burn, that I bought you with that price. Not a single noble, no matter how insane they are, would spend 100 million golds on a mere slave who came from a defeated country, you know. It was true, judging how no one bought a slave spending over even 10 million golds during the auction. You could build a castle in a suburb at the capital of the country with 100 million golds. Say that you escaped by being rebellious and by acting out, but what can you after that? What can you do after that? You don't even have a country now to go back to. Achilles clenched his teeth as if I touched a nerve in him. He struggled to get out from my grip, but that only made me apply more strength into my arms and raise it up again. I stared down at him. I really hate those stupid people who don't know their place. I saw a possibility in you and willingly paid that price. That's all there is between me and you. I didn't only spend an extreme amount of gold on him. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know what I've been through just to get him. Therefore, you'll have to prove to me what you're worth so that those 100 million golds that I spent on you does not go to waste. Speechless. If not, I'll just ruthlessly send you back here. You got that? I asked, my eyes shining dangerously. Honestly, even I didn't expect for me to go this far. I didn't know I was this desperate to survive through this insane game. If I wanted to calm down, there was no other way than to coldly make him accept the reality that he was no longer a noble in his country, but a mere slave to be sold. Ecclesi's eyes wavered. He seemed to have realized that I didn't buy him just to toy him around for pleasure. Nod your head if you understand. I need to hurry back home. We stayed like this for a while until he nodded his head just barely enough for me to notice it. Thankfully, there were no changes to his interest gauge bar. That was more than enough for me. Miss, are you hurt anywhere? The auctioneer hesitantly walked up to me when I rose back up with the mask on my face again. It seemed terrified as he held a whip in his hand. Hey, yeah, yes. Do you have any do you have something you'd like to say? I motioned my head towards Eclipse who tottered to stand up. Undo the cuffs. Well, what? Take off the cuffs. But miss, this slave is. Get rid of everything restricting him except for the choker on his neck and the cuffs and the handcuffs. I'm going to take him home myself. Having no other choice, the slaver gave one of the workers signal with his eyes. Eclipse soon became free except for the hands. The workers and the slaver backed off immediately, but Eclipse didn't do anything but just stood there. And you? I pointed at one worker who whipped Eclipse most willingly. Me? Strip. Huh? Take off everything you're wearing now, except for your underwear, and hand them all over to him. I threw a money bag with some gold coins in it at them. Cling, do it quick. The once half-naked slave was soon in a shape where he could wander around outside. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It was almost the end of midnight when I came out of the shabby building. I was very tired from spending the whole night with my guards up. Huh, a deep sigh escaped my lips as I looked up at the sky. I went through a lot to get there, but I had no idea how I was going to go back. Just follow me for now, I said, glimpsing at Eccles, who was standing behind me. He didn't say anything back. It was an impertinent thing for a slave to do, but I didn't have the energy to correct his actions, so I just let it be. I led Eccles and entered the closest alleyway by that shabby building. I was going to head for the largest streets. That way I can ask for directions from a passerby. It was when I just turned the corner of the tortuous alleyway. Over there, look, they came out. A group of people who were standing in the distance from us all came rushing up to us. They blocked the small path of the alleyway. Well, hello. A man who I didn't know walked up to me through the crowd. He was short but fat. Who? I set my guards up high and questioned. When I did, the man smirked in disbelief and let out a faint laugh. You don't know who I am? Huh? How am I supposed to know who you are? I'm that person who all people call their hope. Plury, master. The servant came rushing out and blocked the fat man who was about to spit out his identity. End of chapter 22. Chapter 23. The lady. It was already morning by the time I arrived at the Eckert mansion with Eclise. The butler and Emily came running to me as soon as they spotted me. Lady Penelope, just where? Where did you go in the middle of the night? Emily shouted and asked when the butler couldn't continue with his words. From their reaction, I realized that secretly bring Eclise in was impossible. Does father know too? Of course, everything was a mess. The young masters both went out with the knights in attempt to find you, while a slaver came by in the middle of the night. I slapped my forehead at Emily's words. That slaver bastard who suspected my identity came to get paid as soon as the sun rose, before I even did. And to think that Derek and Reynolds would go and do all that. Shoot, I shouldn't have brought those two with me. Emily didn't waste a single second as she pushed me in through the gates. Quickly go in, lady. Hurry. Lady, who is that? The butler blocked Eclise, who was following me into the mansion. He's going to be my personalized bodyguard from now on. Show him to a room and prepare it so that he can rest there. Lady, that's... Butler freaked out, scanning Eclise from head to toe. You can't do that, lady. How can we allow someone we don't know the identity of into the man's... Butler, only a few days passed from that day, but it looks like you already started to take my words as a joke again. I was very tired, therefore very sensitive. I wanted to throw myself on the bed right away, but there were mountains of things I had to deal with beforehand. I didn't have the time to argue with the servants here. I ask you to prepare it well so that it's comfortable to Eclise. Understood, lady. The butler bowed, having no other choice. After I asked you was a threat, but thankfully it ended before I had to threaten him. It was when I stepped into the entrance. Hey, you! Ranald, who was pacing back and forth, was the first to notice me. The Duke, who was sitting abruptly, got up from his chair at Reynolds, shouting, Penelope! Father! I unwillingly took a few steps back at the Duke's sharp gaze. The Duke seemed like he was going to shout at me like Reynolds did, but held it back instead. Come to my office now. A huge sigh escaped my lips as I watched the Duke leave. How should I beg for forgiveness this time? All this just so I could get Eclise. I turned to face Eclise in resentment, but that resentment melted in me as soon as I read what was above his head. Interest 18%. I had to contain myself. He was the only hope I had with me. Meanwhile, Reynolds spotted Eclise standing behind me as he muttered in detest. What's that beggar doing here? Follow the butler, Eclise. I hurried and commanded, scared that this would turn into a fuss. Follow the butler, my foot. This is the Eckhart mansion. Reynolds made a face that looked as if he had a lot to say right now, but he didn't continue, probably because he knew that I had to get to the Duke's office right away. The same went for Eclise. He opened his mouth, seeming as if he wanted to say something but didn't. Hurry up, be a good boy. I ignored that he wanted to say something. I didn't have time for that right now. I handed the mask I held in my hand over to Emily, then followed after the Duke, who left a little while ago. Click, a cold and sharp voice pierced my ears as soon as I stepped into the office. Penelope Eckhart. Yes, father. I politely stood in front of him. The Duke was sitting his back facing the desk. Start explaining everything from the very beginning to the end. The Duke's heavy tone of voice was as cold as ice. I couldn't see his face from here, so I became less confident if I can get away with this successfully. I didn't care if my fame dropped from it as long as it didn't affect the interests of the two brothers. Thinking hard for a while, I decided to try the method I've used up until now. I apologize for going outside without even telling you, father. Those are the words I hear the most from you these days. It worked for the first and the second time, but not for the third. I was lost for words. You always apologized like this, but it seems like you didn't really look back to it. What do you think? That's... I bit my lower lip and said, The words that the Duke always wanted from Penelope. I swear I didn't do anything to bring disgrace to this family, father. I didn't stay up all night waiting for you just to hear those kinds of words. Thud. The Duke slammed his fist on the table as soon as I finished my words. Hic. I gasped in the air in surprise. He was always ignorant towards Penelope, so this was the first time ever seeing the Duke get angry like this. I got scared at this unexpected reaction. What am I supposed to do? My mind went blank. I already expected that just apologizing wouldn't work this time. End of chapter 23. Chapter 24. Derek. It was the Duke who stopped Derek from scolding me any longer. What are you doing? Being rude to just burst in here without knocking when I'm talking to her. Derek's eyes wavered for a split second. He let go of my shoulders and backed up a step. Then he bowed to the Duke. I apologize, father. My shoulders hurt a little. I rubbed my one shoulder with my hand as I watched Derek. What the? Why won't he leave? Derek stood beside the desk and stared at me as if it was the most obvious thing to do. It was the same with the Duke. They both looked willing to hear me out. Phew. Now there's another one I have to deal with. I sighed mentally. All right, I get what you tried to do, the Duke said after clearing his throat once. It was fortunate that the excuse I've thought up beforehand seemed reasonable enough to him, but his questioning didn't end there. But if that was the case, you could have just set him free after you bought him. Why did you bring him here? Ichlis is a very skilled at martial arts, father. That's one reason why I bought him with such a price. I started spitting out all the words of excuses that I've prepared to say. I wish for you to accept Iglis as a knight in training. He seemed quite useful. As our family's knight? Yes, I believe it will be more beneficial to officially train him rather than to make him a servant here, where he cannot show off his. I can't stand hearing more of this. Derek cut through my line. There's an overflowing number of people who are grateful just being able to work in this mansion as a servant. Speechless, but right now you're suggesting that we train someone who's not even a commoner, but a slave. Besides, what are you going to use him for if he's been trained? The Duke also seemed to be agreeing with Derek. Stop getting in the way and just leave already. I suppressed the tiredness I was feeling and answered, I'm going to use him as my personal bodyguard. Your personal bodyguard. I can forever wander around, having not a single bodyguard to guard me. The Duke's eyes widened a little. What do you mean by you don't have anyone guarding you? There are over 20,000 knights working in the Eckhart grounds. Yes, but I also know that I had a bad reputation among the knights, father. Speechless, isn't that why you didn't make any of them as my bodyguard? The two both closed their mouths shut. Every noble lady had at least 5 to 6 bodyguards with them. The number of bodyguards for a noble lady increased from there depending on her family's noble rank. When I asked Emily about it, she answered that Penelope didn't have a single bodyguard. If she had to go out somewhere, a knight who had nothing to do would come with her, but that was all. Just how bad did people think of her? I was just guessing when both of them went speechless. That made me go speechless too for a moment. I don't want to entrust my safety to those people who are not willing to protect me. Speechless, it's not guaranteed that what happened to me today won't happen again after leaving this place. Leaving? They both shouted almost at the same time. What do you mean by that? Leaving, I mean. The Duke asked in an urgent voice. It's just as what I said. I'm an adult now. My eyes widened again at their reaction, then shrugged. Please allow me to choose my bodyguard myself for my safety. I beg you, father, brother. I shook my head. The two didn't say anything to refuse. More like couldn't that didn't. More like couldn't than didn't. What happened today wasn't entirely my fault. It was a big problem if there weren't a single knight worried enough to willingly follow their master going somewhere alone, especially when that master's a member of this powerful Duke family that can affect the country. To be honest, I was doing this just to get a knight to guard me. I only needed an excuse for Eccles to stay at the mansion. First, fortunately, my plan worked. All right, you must have had a tiring night today. Go up and get some rest now. I'll tell a doctor to come to check on you after you get some sleep. Thank you, father. I didn't need a doctor to check on me since I wasn't hurt anywhere, but I didn't argue any longer. Then I bowed once and walked to the door. And Derek, you stay. The Duke added just when I stepped out of the office. I glimpsed behind me to see Derek by the door as if he was following me out. Ah, just what's up with this dude? I hurriedly closed the door to the office. What else did he want to scold me for? That he'd want to follow me? Huh. The door I closed didn't open back. I was finally able to let out a sigh of relief. But then a white box appeared before me. System. Date at the festival with Derek. Quest failed. Try again. Reward. Derek's interest plus 3 and others. Accept. Reject. What? No, never. There were still many days left until the festival ended. However, I clicked on reject as there was absolutely no way I'd go to see the festival with him again. I continued to stare at the disappearing white box, feeling unfair. End of chapter 24. Chapter 25. Of course, that wasn't what actually happened. One of the worst things can happen when a feeble noble lady goes in an alleyway without a single guard. Do you get it? The reason why I'm going to use Eclipse as my bodyguard. Speechless. Sorry for worrying you, brother. With that said, I walked past Reynold, who was stiff on the spot, to the stairs. Eclipse was emotionless, and Emily was looking at the ground when they followed my back. Another term for hatred could be onlooking. The people working there here who only watched Penelope from afar when she could be in danger anytime. There was no way I could. There was no way I could think of them in a good light. I couldn't also when I thought of me and what I've been through before coming to this world. I was walking up the steps. System. Date at the festival with Reynold. Quest failed. Try again. Accept or reject. I clicked on reject straight away. Eccles followed me like a puppy through the hall until I got to my room. Emily freaked out when he tried to follow me in my room, so I opened my mouth until where are you planning to follow me? Eccles was blocked by me from coming in, but he tilted his head and spoke without much hardship. You told me to prove my worth. I was a little dumbfounded at his reason for acting so well up until now. Seems like he really hates the idea of going back to the slave market. Then I spotted the yellow marble on the choker he was wearing. The ring. That was when I was reminded that I had a tool I could use to suppress him. The excitement I felt when I saw interest 18% was gone as my head cooled down. It was still fresh in my mind, the sight of him killing people after breaking the cuffs in one go. The polite and well-mannered knight who showed up in the normal mode, who was still loyal to Penelope till the end even when he knew that his master was like a villain. However, Eccles, who wasn't yet trained, was even more dangerous than I had expected. I came to think that maybe the choker was the reason behind his loyalty towards Penelope. I can't be fooled by his innocent looking face. He's a guy who beat up all those hyenas with just a wooden sword. I opened my mouth after reminding myself not to be fooled. That doesn't include you being my night partner. Then, you heard the conversation, didn't you? That I brought you here in order to use you as my bodyguard. Yes, Ichlis nodded. It's your first mission to make all the people here to accept you in this mansion. Mission? Yeah, I can forever keep on arguing with people to let a useless one in the mansion. I said in a cold tone, and it was when I realized that it sounded so half-heartedly. Therefore I added, I trust that you won't disappoint me, right? Eclis slowly nodded his head at my question. I thought I saw his gray eyes sparkle. Interest 20%. Note, speechless. His interest percentage changed just then. It was now closer to 30% of interest, which is where all the male leads' interests start in the normal mode. When will I be able to get it up to 30%? And when will I be able to get it up more to see the ending? I felt tired of everything, thinking about how I still had a long way to go. Emily, escort Eclise to the room that the butler has prepared for him. Yes, lady. Just then, master, a dry tone of voice pierced my ears. I'll do my best to be complimented by you. Then I held a hand up and patted his currently dirty hair. Eclise rubbed his head against my hand, as if he was waiting for this. But that still didn't make the fears I felt for him to completely go away. Nevertheless, the hope of getting out of this place, I'm really happy that it was Master who got me out of there, Master, made me determined and willing to make my next move. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I didn't come out of my room, my excuse for it being that I was going to go for a self-time out after I brought Eclise in this mansion. Derek and the Duke didn't kick Eclise out of this mansion after hearing my false explanation that day. They also didn't do anything about me staying in the room, not showing my face for days. But I heard from Emily that the Duke was searching through each noble family for any person with the name Fleury in their full name, which made the chills go down my spine. Not only that, but I also heard that the training time and its difficulty for the knights have increased all of a sudden. There's no way he'd go finding that pig. There wouldn't be much problem even if he did, but I felt weird because the thing seemed like it was flowing rather strangely. Whatever. I threw the book I had in my hands, then just flopped into the bed. The warm sunlight at noon came through the window and shined in the room. Thankfully, a short period of peaceful time to relax was granted to the poor me after clearing an episode rescuing Eclise. No one bothered me even if I slept and ate and read books for the whole day. Time out is always the best. I wanted Derek to put me on time out until I'm able to see an ending if possible. They wash my clothes, clean my room, give me food when it's time. This is like a dream. Knock knock. Phew, lady, are you still lying on your bed? You should get up now. It's time for lunch. What's for lunch? I lied in bed and looked at Emily coming into my room with a tray. It's pumpkin salad and fried chicken legs. Is that all? I didn't try and hide my disappointment. I told the cook about how you wanted to eat something spicy, and he said that he specially invented this sauce. Really? I got up from the spot in excitement. I've been repeating the word spicy chicken leg in front of Emily for days, and it seemed like those words finally reached the cook's ears. Goodness, I feel like your taste has changed in food. You didn't even look at strong flavored foods before. Emily tilted her head in wonder while she set the plates on the table. Though she hated and looked down on Penelope, she did work as Penelope's maid for years. She seemed to be hiding it strange that the one she served has changed in some ways. They say that people's taste in food changes as they grow up. True, Emily nodded. Then she dropped the topic as she told me, "Go ahead, lady." Emily, who doesn't play tricks on food anymore, started separating the meat from the bone on the plate. Thanks to that, I didn't need to do that myself. How is it? Chew the food well before swallowing. Even while separating the meat from the bone, Emily didn't forget to check on me from time to time. I came to wonder if she was that maid from before at her wholehearted serving. But even so, I didn't let my guard down. She wouldn't be able to guess, even in her dreams, that I'm still keeping an eye on her while eating. Anyways, this should be sweeter. It's not the taste of that spicy sauce I ate back then. I was able to relax completely on eating after I was certain that something was wrong with this food. What I wanted was the spicy chicken I ate with my friends sometimes. The cook's spicy chicken was really just fried spicy chicken. I should start saying sweet salty now, in front of Emily. It wasn't the desired flavor, but still ate it as I liked the spiciness that I haven't eaten for a long time. I'm full now. I set down the fork then when Emily immediately took the plate away and set the dessert down. The festival's coming to an end now, lady, Emily said to me who was eating the melon sherbet. Is it? Yes, you'd always go out on the festival days and brought in some new unique jewels each time. Were there none of them that caught your eyes this time? I don't know. I was too focused on a certain something that time that I didn't even get to see what was there at the festival. Now that I think of it, I remember Reynolds saying something like that too. Seemed like Penelope really did go mad when it came to jewels. What a diligent customer she was to a lot of stores. I already felt tired just by imagining her visiting from stores to stores buying jewels. Ah, right. The butler said that the thing you ordered from the jeweler through the butler has arrived. Orders? What? Do you remember when you called for a jeweler before the festival started? Ah, now I remember. I totally forgot about it until now. Should I bring them right now? Emily asked, seeing that my face was getting serious as each moment passed. I lightly nodded my head. Yeah, right away. Translator's notes. Let's skip this. End of chapter 25.